Ladies and gentlemen, every human being comes into this world with a seed hidden deep within the soul. This seed is not random, nor is it the product of chance. It carries the pattern of what you are meant to become, just as the acorn carries within it the destiny of the oak tree. To live without discovering this inner pattern is to wander as a stranger in your own existence, but to find it, to nurture it, and to allow it to grow is to step into the fullness of your life's purpose. The outer world constantly seeks to pull us in many directions. Society tells us what we should value, what we should pursue, and how success must be measured. Yet beneath the noise of the world, there is a deeper voice, soft but insistent. It does not shout, it whispers. It does not flatter, it calls. That is the voice of your inner life, the guiding current of your destiny. Too often we silence it. We dismiss it as foolish or impractical. But the tragedy of ignoring it is greater than any failure. It is to betray the very essence of who you are. To find your purpose, you must first look inward. The unconscious speaks in dreams, in symbols, in moments of intuition. These are not random, they are messages from the deeper self guiding you toward wholeness. What you fear, what you avoid, even the shadows you deny, all carry clues to your true calling. The path to purpose is not in escaping the darkness, but in integrating it, in bringing to light the parts of yourself that you have neglected or rejected. Life asks of you a journey, and this journey is not always easy. It is not the smooth road of comfort, but often the rugged path of self-discovery. The moments of struggle, confusion, and despair are not meaningless. They are the tests by which the soul awakens. In every trial lies an invitation to shed what is false, to embrace what is true, and to take one more step toward your authentic being. Your purpose is not something imposed from outside. It is not merely a role, a career, or a duty handed down by others. It is the unfolding of your unique essence, the realization of the image imprinted on your soul. To live with purpose is to align your outer life with the inner truth, so that what you do and who you are become one. And so I say, do not ask what life expects from you. Ask instead, what does your soul demand of you? Do not be satisfied with imitation or with the borrowed goals of others. The greatest sin is not to stumble, but to live a life that was never truly yours. When you embrace the fullness of your being, the light and the shadow, the known and the unknown, you step into the stream of your true purpose. In that moment, life ceases to be a random series of events. It becomes a meaningful journey, each step a revelation, each challenge a teacher, each triumph a confirmation that you are walking the path destined for you. Your purpose is already within you. It has always been there, waiting patiently for you to listen, to awaken, and to live. Every human being is born with an invisible seed placed within the depths of their soul, a seed that carries within it the outline of what they are destined to become. Just as an acorn holds the full potential of the oak tree, each person carries a hidden pattern that quietly guides the course of their existence. This seed cannot be given by society, nor can it be borrowed from another. It is uniquely your own. Yet so many people wander through life unaware of its presence, imitating others, chasing after borrowed dreams, and living by standards imposed from outside. To live this way is to miss the quiet miracle of existence. To recognize and nurture this seed is to discover your true purpose in life, for it is already imprinted within you, waiting for you to awaken and bring it into form. The world often distracts us with voices louder than our own inner calling. From childhood, we are told what is valuable, what success means, and how we should live in order to be accepted. These influences form layers of expectations that cover the original seed of our being, burying it so deeply that we may forget it exists at all. And yet, despite the noise of society, there is a persistent whisper that calls us back to ourselves. It is a voice not of ambition but of destiny, not of competition but of truth. The tragedy is not that this voice is absent, but that we ignore it in favor of louder demands. Purpose is not something to be created, it is something to be remembered, uncovered, and nurtured like a fragile flame in the darkness. When one begins to search for this seed, the journey often leads inward rather than outward. Many imagine that purpose can be found by scanning the horizon of opportunities, by grasping at external achievements, or by comparing themselves with others. But the true path lies in silence, in dreams, in moments of stillness where the unconscious reveals itself through images, symbols, and intuitions. The things that stir your deepest emotions, the activities that bring you alive, the visions that appear in your imagination, all serve as signs pointing to what the seed within you longs to grow into. Even the things you fear, resist, or dismiss as impossible are often connected to this inner design. The seed does not shout, it speaks in subtle ways, and only those willing to listen can begin to understand its message. But listening alone is not enough. Just as a seed requires nourishment, patience, and care to grow into a tree, the inner seed of your being requires courage and commitment to become visible in the world. There will be times when others cannot understand what drives you, when the path feels uncertain, and when the obstacles seem too great to overcome. Yet these very challenges are part of the process of growth. The oak tree does not emerge overnight. It pushes through the soil, weathers storms, and reaches toward the light over many years. Likewise, the purpose within you demands persistence, faith, and a willingness to endure struggle. Every trial becomes the soil in which the seed is tested and strengthened. It is important to recognize that no two seeds are alike. Just as nature abounds in endless variety, so too every soul carries a different pattern of growth. To compare yourself with others is to dishonor your own design. The rose is not meant to be an oak, nor the oak a lily. Each fulfills its purpose by becoming what it is meant to be, not by imitating what surrounds it. In the same way, your purpose is not to live someone else's story, but to become fully yourself. This is why imitation, no matter how polished, always leaves the soul empty. Authenticity alone brings fulfillment, because only in authenticity does the seed within you find expression. The process of nurturing this seed is not purely about achievement or success in the conventional sense. It is about alignment. When your inner essence begins to shape your outer life, when what you do in the world reflects who you truly are, then life gains depth and meaning. You may still face hardship, but even suffering becomes bearable when it is connected to a greater sense of direction. Conversely, even outward success feels hollow when it is divorced from your inner design. To live a life disconnected from your seed is to live as a stranger to yourself, wandering in borrowed identities. But to live in alignment is to experience wholeness, a sense that your existence is not random but purposeful. At times, you may doubt whether the seed within you is real or strong enough to grow. Doubt is natural, for the seed begins small, hidden, and fragile. But the truth is that it has always been there, waiting for your attention. No one can plant it for you, and no one can take it away. The most important step is to trust that it exists and to begin the work of bringing it into light. That work may mean exploring your inner life more deeply, confronting fears you have long avoided, or pursuing paths that others may not understand. It may mean patience, as the unfolding of your true self cannot be rushed. Yet in every small step of authenticity, in every act that honors who you are rather than who others expect you to be, the seed grows stronger and more visible. Ultimately, the discovery of your purpose is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming who you have always been. The acorn does not strive to be an oak. It simply allows what is within it to unfold. Likewise, you do not need to invent your purpose, for it is already written within your soul. The task is to uncover it, to nurture it, and to give it the space to grow. In doing so, you will find that life itself becomes richer, more meaningful, and more deeply aligned with the truth of your being. The seed is there, waiting. The question is whether you will listen, whether you will trust, and whether you will have the courage to let it grow into the fullness of what you are meant to be. The search for purpose begins with the ability to hear the voice that speaks within, a voice that is softer than the demands of the outer world, yet far more enduring. From the moment we are born, we are surrounded by influences that tell us what to value, what to pursue, and how to measure our worth. Parents, teachers, friends, and society at large create an atmosphere of expectations that seem almost impossible to escape. The world shouts its standards into our ears. Success means wealth, happiness comes through possessions, respect comes through recognition. In the midst of all these loud messages, it becomes increasingly difficult to listen to the quiet inner voice that tries to guide us toward what is uniquely ours. That voice does not argue with the world, it does not compete with the noise, it waits. It waits patiently for us to turn our attention inward and recognize its truth. Most people ignore this voice not because it is absent, but because it is subtle. We live in an age of distraction where constant stimulation drowns out silence. Yet it is only in silence that the deeper self reveals itself. To hear the inner voice requires a willingness to step away from the endless comparisons and demands of society. It requires solitude, reflection, and the courage to trust impressions that cannot always be explained logically. The inner voice often comes in moments of intuition, in sudden feelings that something is right or wrong, in a deep sense of being drawn to a path that others may not understand. It may appear in the form of restlessness when life feels empty, or in the quiet joy that arises when you are engaged in something deeply meaningful. These are not random sensations. They are signals from your true self, urging you toward your purpose. Listening to this voice can be unsettling because it often contradicts what society teaches. You may feel a calling toward a life that does not match the common definition of success. Perhaps you are drawn to create, to heal, to teach, or to serve in a way that does not bring fame or wealth. The world might tell you such a path is impractical, but the inner voice does not measure in numbers or recognition. It measures in authenticity. The danger of ignoring it is not only a sense of emptiness, but also the slow erosion of your spirit. Many people live outwardly successful lives while inwardly withering because they never listened to the voice that pointed them to their true calling. There is a paradox in this journey. The inner voice is both deeply personal and universally present. Every person has it, yet it speaks in a way unique to each individual. For one, it may speak through dreams and imagination. For another, through deep emotional reactions to certain experiences. For another still, through persistent dissatisfaction with a life that looks good on the surface. Because it speaks differently to each of us, no one else can tell you exactly what it says. Others may guide or inspire you, but ultimately the task of listening belongs to you alone. The courage required here is the courage to trust yourself when the world doubts you, and to walk your own path even when it seems uncertain. The inner voice does not promise an easy road. In fact, It often leads you into discomfort, asking you to grow beyond what you currently are. It may urge you to leave behind roles that no longer fit, to face fears you have avoided, or to step into the unknown with no guarantee of success. Yet in following it, you discover a vitality that cannot be found in comfort. The challenges become meaningful because they are aligned with the unfolding of your true purpose. Struggle loses its bitterness when it serves a deeper calling, and even failure becomes a teacher rather than a defeat. To cultivate the ability to hear and trust this voice, one must develop an inner life. This may mean keeping a journal, paying attention to dreams, practicing stillness, or engaging in forms of reflection that allow the unconscious to speak. It requires attentiveness to patterns, the recurring themes in your life, the activities that make you lose track of time, the longings that never seem to fade despite attempts to suppress them. These patterns are the language of the inner voice. They are the breadcrumbs left for you to follow. Yet the voice can also be found in the places you least expect in your shadow, in the aspects of yourself you reject or deny. Often, what we resist contains valuable information about what we are meant to embrace. For example, the fear of failure may point toward a calling that demands courage. The envy of another person's path may reveal a neglected part of yourself longing to be expressed. Even in discomfort, the inner voice is speaking, urging you not to run away, but to turn inward and discover what is hidden beneath. The greatest danger is to confuse the voice of the world with the voice of the self. The world may reward conformity, but the inner voice rewards authenticity. It is not about what others think you should be. It is about what you truly are. To follow, it requires trust, patience, and resilience. At times, you will question whether it is real, whether you are only imagining things. But the more you listen and act in alignment with it, the clearer it becomes. Each step taken in its direction strengthens the connection, just as a muscle grows with use. In the end, listening to the inner voice is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a meaningful life. Without it, you may achieve much yet feel empty, admired by others yet estranged from yourself. With it, even the simplest life can be rich with significance, because it is lived in harmony with your essence. The inner voice does not lead you away from reality. It leads you deeper into it, aligning you with the truth of who you are meant to be. It whispers still beneath the noise of the world, waiting for you to pause, to listen, and to follow. The unconscious is a vast ocean beneath the small island of our conscious mind, a reservoir of images, instincts, and forgotten experiences that quietly shapes the way we live. Most people see only the surface of their awareness and assume that what they know about themselves is all that exists. Yet beneath this surface lies a deeper intelligence that is always communicating with us through symbols, dreams, and intuitions. To find our true purpose in life, we must learn to pay attention to these hidden messages, for they carry the wisdom of the self that is larger than the ego. The unconscious is not an enemy to be feared. It is a guide that holds the map to the life we are meant to live. Dreams are among the most direct expressions of this hidden realm. While the conscious mind speaks in logic and linear thought, the unconscious speaks in images and metaphors. A dream may seem confusing, filled with strange figures and impossible events, yet each element carries meaning. Dreams reveal not only our fears and unresolved conflicts, but also our potential and calling. For example, a recurring dream of being trapped may point toward areas of life where one feels confined, while a dream of flight may symbolize a longing for freedom and growth. If we dismiss dreams as nonsense, we throw away messages that could help us understand where our lives are blocked and where they are meant to unfold. By reflecting on them, we begin to hear the voice of the deeper self, which often knows what our conscious mind resists admitting. Symbols, too, are expressions of the unconscious. They appear in art, religion, myths, and personal visions. A symbol is not just a sign pointing to something obvious. It carries layers of meaning that touch both personal experience and universal truth. Consider the image of a journey, so common in stories and legends. It represents the path of life, the trials of growth, and the search for wholeness. When certain symbols resonate deeply with us, it is not by accident. They speak to the archetypal patterns of the collective unconscious, patterns that shape every human life. These symbols awaken us to dimensions of our own purpose, reminding us that our personal story is part of something greater. Intuition is another way the unconscious guides us. It is the sudden knowing that bypasses logical reasoning, the feeling that something is right or wrong even when we cannot explain why. Many people ignore intuition because it cannot be measured or proven, yet it often reveals truths that reason alone cannot grasp. Intuition is the whisper of the unconscious, arising when the deeper self sees patterns the conscious mind overlooks. It may appear when making choices, warning us against a path that looks appealing on the surface but is empty within, or drawing us toward a direction that seems uncertain but feels alive with possibility. To ignore intuition is to silence one of the most important guides toward our destiny. The unconscious also reveals itself in the emotions we cannot control. Intense anger, sudden sadness, unexpected joy, all carry messages from beneath the surface. Often, these emotions point to needs or desires we have neglected. They show us where we are out of alignment with ourselves. For instance, persistent dissatisfaction with work may not simply be a complaint about external conditions, but a sign that our deeper self is calling for a different kind of expression. If we treat emotions as obstacles to be suppressed, we miss their deeper significance. But if we see them as signals, they can guide us closer to our authentic path. Yet perhaps the most challenging aspect of the unconscious is the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, or refuse to see. These aspects may appear in dreams as frightening figures, or in waking life as qualities we dislike in others. The shadow is not evil in itself. It is simply the unacknowledged part of our wholeness. Within it often lies hidden potential and unexpressed strength. A person who suppresses anger, for example, may also be suppressing the ability to stand up for themselves and claim their true place in the world. To integrate the shadow is to recover the parts of ourselves necessary for living fully. Only by facing what we fear in ourselves can we step into the fullness of our purpose. Engaging with the unconscious requires patience and humility. The ego likes to believe it is in control, but the unconscious reminds us that we are part of a larger process of growth. Purpose is not something we invent through willpower alone. It emerges through dialogue with the depths of the psyche. This dialogue may be cultivated through dream analysis, journaling, meditation, creative expression, or simply by paying attention to recurring patterns in our lives. The more we listen, the more we discover that the unconscious is not chaotic but purposeful, always seeking to guide us toward wholeness. One of the paradoxes of this inner journey is that what appears irrational or confusing at first often becomes the very source of clarity. A dream that seems nonsensical may, upon reflection, reveal the direction of our growth. An intuition that seemed foolish may lead to the most meaningful decision of our lives. A shadow quality we despised may, once integrated, give us the courage we lacked. The unconscious does not speak in the language of reason, but in the language of depth, and learning to translate its messages is part of the process of discovering our destiny. To find purpose in life is not merely to choose a career or achieve certain goals. It is to live in alignment with the deeper self that speaks through the unconscious. When we honor dreams, symbols, intuitions, emotions, and even shadows, we begin to see the outline of the life that was meant for us. We stop living only on the surface and begin to participate in the deeper flow of existence. Life becomes less about controlling and more about listening, less about imitating others and more about unfolding the unique image imprinted on our soul. The unconscious is not a dark abyss to be feared. It is the soil in which our true purpose is rooted. By learning to enter into dialogue with it, we discover that the path we seek has always been within us, waiting to be revealed. To search for meaning in life without acknowledging the shadow is like trying to walk toward the sun while denying that your own body casts a shadow behind you. The parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or bury deep in the unconscious do not disappear simply because we refuse to look at them. They remain with us, influencing our choices, coloring our relationships, and shaping our destinies in hidden ways. Many people live their entire lives at war with themselves, attempting to present only what is acceptable while repressing everything that feels undesirable. Yet the truth is that wholeness cannot be achieved through denial. The shadow must be faced, embraced, and integrated, for it holds not only the darkness we fear, but also the keys to our growth and our ultimate purpose. The shadow is made of all that we hide: anger, envy, fear, selfishness, desires we consider shameful, impulses we are told are unacceptable. But it also contains talents, passions, and strengths that never found a place in our conscious lives. What is pushed down becomes distorted, emerging in unhealthy ways or projected onto others. A person who refuses to acknowledge their own aggression may constantly see the world as hostile. Another who denies ambition may resent those who achieve. In this way, the shadow makes itself known, whether we like it or not. To ignore it is to live in illusion, to mistake others as enemies when in truth we are battling unrecognized parts of ourselves. Yet the shadow is not an enemy to be destroyed. It is a neglected part of the whole self, waiting for recognition. To discover our true purpose, we must not only cultivate the light of our virtues, but also integrate the dark, for only then do we become complete. Purpose is not found by fleeing from fear, but by transforming it into strength. It is not found by denying anger, but by channeling it into courage and justice. It is not found by suppressing desire, but by learning to direct it toward creative and life-giving ends. The shadow, when integrated, becomes a source of vitality. Life itself ensures that we encounter our shadow. It appears in the situations that trigger us, in the emotions that overwhelm us, in the people who irritate us without reason. Every time we feel an outsized reaction, we are being shown a piece of ourselves we have not fully accepted. Instead of dismissing or projecting these reactions, we can turn inward and ask, what is this experience revealing about me? Why does this quality in another disturb me so deeply? Often, the answer lies not in them, but in the parts of ourselves we have locked away. These encounters are not accidents. They are invitations to see ourselves more clearly. To engage the shadow requires courage, for it means confronting truths we would rather avoid. Yet avoidance carries a higher cost. Repressed emotions and denied aspects of self can poison life, leading to depression, emptiness, and self-destruction. But when faced with honesty, the shadow begins to lose its destructive power. What once seemed threatening becomes a teacher. For example, someone who has always suppressed their assertiveness may discover that integrating it allows them to set boundaries and protect their values. Someone who has denied their sensitivity out of fear of weakness may find that embracing it brings compassion and deeper connection. In this way, the shadow is not a burden, but a doorway to the very qualities that make us whole. The journey of integrating the shadow is inseparable from the journey of finding purpose. A person who only embraces their light lives a partial life, guided by what is acceptable rather than what is authentic. But purpose is not about perfection. It is about authenticity. To fulfill our destiny, we must live with the fullness of who we are, not just the polished fragments. The shadow ensures that purpose is not superficial. It pushes us to grow, to wrestle with ourselves, to bring forth a deeper, more resilient strength. The obstacles on our path, the failures, the moments of despair, all draw out what lies hidden. In this sense, the shadow is not an obstacle to purpose, but the very ground from which it arises. Integration does not mean indulging the shadow blindly. It means bringing it into consciousness, understanding it, and finding its rightful place in our lives. Anger can become destructive when uncontrolled, but when integrated, it becomes the fire that drives justice. Fear can paralyze, but when acknowledged, it becomes caution and wisdom. Desire can enslave, but when embraced with awareness, it becomes passion and creativity. By bringing these forces into balance, we do not eliminate the shadow. We transform it into a source of strength. The path of integration also requires compassion toward oneself. Too often, people approach their shadow with judgment and shame, condemning themselves for having qualities they consider unworthy. But judgment only deepens repression. What the shadow needs is recognition, understanding, and acceptance. To say, yes, this too is a part of me, and I will not run from it, is to reclaim lost energy and wholeness. With compassion, the shadow ceases to be an enemy and becomes an ally. When we integrate the shadow, something remarkable happens. Life itself becomes more meaningful. Struggles no longer seem like senseless burdens, but opportunities for growth. Failures are no longer humiliations, but lessons in self-discovery. Relationships become richer, for we no longer project our darkness onto others but see them as mirrors reflecting our inner world. And purpose emerges not as a borrowed dream, but as the authentic expression of a whole person, light and dark, known and unknown, united in one. To deny the shadow is to live a divided life, forever at odds with oneself. To embrace it is to step into the fullness of being, where nothing is wasted and everything can serve the journey. Purpose is not found in perfection, but in wholeness, and wholeness demands that we face the shadow. The task is difficult, but the reward is immeasurable. A life lived in truth, a self no longer fragmented, and a destiny embraced with all the strength and richness of the human soul. Life is often imagined as a straight path toward comfort, success, and happiness. Yet in truth it is a winding and unpredictable journey filled with challenges, struggles, and moments of confusion. These difficulties are not meaningless interruptions to our purpose, but essential steps along the way. Each hardship carries within it a lesson, each obstacle a hidden opportunity for growth. The idea that life should be smooth and easy is an illusion that robs us of the very experiences that make us stronger and more complete. To find purpose, one must be willing to embrace the journey as it truly is, a process of self-discovery shaped not only by triumphs but also by failures, not only by clarity but also by doubt. the tendency of the human mind is to resist struggle. We long for certainty, for security, for a life free from pain, yet it is often pain itself that awakens us to deeper truths. Consider the person who has always lived in comfort, shielded from difficulty. Such a life may appear enviable, but it rarely produces depth of character or clarity of purpose. By contrast, the individual who has endured suffering often emerges with resilience, compassion, and wisdom. Struggles refine us. They strip away illusions and force us to confront what is real. They show us the limits of the false selves we try to maintain and push us toward authenticity. Confusion, too, has its role. There are times when we feel lost, when the path ahead is unclear and every choice seems uncertain. In such moments, we may feel abandoned by life, yet confusion is a necessary stage in the process of becoming. It forces us to pause, to look inward, and to search for direction not in external expectations, but in the depths of our own being. Without confusion, we would never question the roles we blindly accept, nor would we develop the courage to carve out a path of our own. Confusion is not the absence of purpose. It is the soil in which purpose begins to take root. The struggles we face often reveal the qualities we did not know we possessed. A person who has endured loss discovers the strength to survive what once seemed unbearable. Another, who has faced rejection, learns resilience and the ability to stand firm in their truth. Adversity is not a sign that we have strayed from our purpose. It is the crucible in which purpose is tested and refined. Without struggle, our inner seed would remain dormant, never pushed to grow into its full form. Just as a seed must break apart in the soil before it can sprout, so must we undergo trials that break apart our illusions in order to allow the true self to emerge. There is also a hidden wisdom in the timing of our struggles. Life does not reveal everything at once, but only when we are ready to face it. Often, what seems like an obstacle blocking our path turns out to be the very thing we needed to prepare us for the next stage of our journey. The disappointment of a failed ambition may push us to discover a more authentic calling. The ending of a relationship may open space for a deeper connection with ourselves. The illness that brings life to a halt may force us to reevaluate what truly matters. In each case, struggle is not a meaningless accident, but a messenger carrying the seeds of transformation. It is natural to wish for an easier road, but an easy road rarely leads to depth. Growth demands that we leave behind what is familiar and comfortable. Purpose is not discovered while clinging to safety. It emerges when we dare to step into uncertainty, even when it feels like walking through darkness. In this sense, struggles are not obstacles to purpose, but the very pathway to it. They strip away false attachments, test our endurance, and call forth the courage we did not know we had. Without them, we would never discover the strength of our own spirit. One of the greatest shifts we can make is to stop viewing struggle as punishment and begin to see it as part of the natural unfolding of life. Just as the caterpillar must endure the darkness of the cocoon before becoming a butterfly, so too must we pass through times of difficulty in order to transform. The process may feel unbearable while we are in it, but on the other side we often look back with gratitude, recognizing that it shaped us into who we were meant to be. Pain teaches us humility, failure teaches us persistence, and loss teaches us love. Each trial contributes to the depth of our humanity and brings us closer to our purpose. It is important to remember that we are not passive victims in this process. Struggles invite us to respond, to make choices, to engage with life actively. They ask us, will you give up, or will you continue forward? Will you cling to what is false, or will you embrace what is real? Every response shapes the person we become. Our struggles do not define us, but the way we respond to them does. In facing difficulties with courage and openness, we align ourselves with the deeper current of life that is always guiding us toward wholeness. The journey of self-discovery is lifelong, and no one escapes without hardship. Yet if we learn to see struggle as a companion rather than an enemy, our perspective changes. Instead of resenting the obstacles, we begin to ask what they are trying to teach us. Instead of fleeing from discomfort, we lean into it, knowing that it holds the key to our growth. Purpose is not handed to us fully formed. It is revealed step by step through the very challenges we would rather avoid. In the end, life's journey is meaningful precisely because it is difficult. Struggles, confusion, and despair are not signs of failure, but invitations to deeper understanding. They strip away what is false and reveal what is true. They force us to confront ourselves honestly and to discover the strength hidden within. To embrace struggle as part of the journey is to recognize that every trial brings us closer to our authentic self. And when we walk this path with courage, we find that even in the darkest moments, life is guiding us toward the purpose we were born to fulfill. Authenticity is the heart of true purpose, for a life lived according to borrowed ideals or imitated roles can never bring fulfillment. To live authentically means to align the outer life with the inner truth, to let what you do in the world reflect who you truly are within. This alignment is not easy, because from childhood we are shaped by expectations. Parents, teachers, culture, and society all press upon us their own visions of who we should be. We learn early how to gain approval by meeting those expectations, and in doing so, many of us lose touch with our own inner voice. Yet no matter how far we stray, there remains within us an unchanging center that longs to be expressed. That center is the essence of who we are, and purpose is found only when we allow it to guide our lives. To live inauthentically is to wear a mask, to present to the world an image that hides the true self. Masks serve a function. They help us adapt, survive, and play roles in society. But if we cling to them too long, we begin to believe they are all we are. The danger of this is that the mask may bring success in the eyes of others while leaving us empty inside. Outwardly, we may achieve, but inwardly, we feel estranged from ourselves. The applause of the world cannot compensate for the loss of the soul. This is why authenticity is not a luxury, but a necessity. Without it, life lacks depth and meaning, no matter how impressive it appears. Authenticity requires courage, for it often demands that we go against the expectations of others. It may mean disappointing those who wanted us to follow a certain path. It may mean giving up the security of roles that no longer fit. It may mean facing criticism or rejection. But the cost of avoiding authenticity is far greater than the cost of embracing it. To deny who you are is to live a life that was never truly yours. To accept who you are, with both strengths and flaws, is to step into freedom. Living authentically does not mean indulging every impulse or rejecting all social roles. It means allowing your actions and choices to flow from your true essence rather than from fear or conformity. It means asking, does this path reflect who I am? Does it align with what my soul longs for? When the answer is yes, even difficult work becomes meaningful, for it expresses your inner reality. When the answer is no, even outward success feels hollow, because it belongs to a life that is not truly yours. One of the great challenges of authenticity is that it requires us to accept the whole of ourselves, not just the parts that are admirable. We cannot be authentic while hiding from our shadow or pretending to be perfect. Authenticity means owning our flaws, our fears, and our limitations as much as our strengths and talents. It is about being real rather than ideal. Others may judge us, but authenticity frees us from the endless burden of maintaining appearances. Instead of exhausting ourselves by pretending, we live with honesty, and that honesty becomes a source of strength. Purpose emerges naturally from this alignment. When we live authentically, we no longer chase after borrowed goals or compare ourselves endlessly to others. We no longer strive to meet standards that do not resonate with our hearts. Instead, our life begins to take shape around what is true for us. The work we do, the relationships we form, the choices we make, all begin to reflect the unique essence of who we are. Purpose is not something we impose upon ourselves. It is something that unfolds when we allow authenticity to guide us. This alignment between inner truth and outer life gives rise to a sense of wholeness. Life ceases to feel divided between what we show and what we hide, between who we are and who we pretend to be. There is a deep peace that comes with this unity. Challenges remain, but they no longer feel meaningless, for they are part of a path that is truly ours. Even suffering takes on a different quality, for when it serves authenticity, it feels worthwhile. To endure difficulty in pursuit of truth is better than to live in comfort at the cost of one's soul. The journey toward authenticity is not a one-time decision but an ongoing process. Life constantly tests our alignment, presenting temptations to betray ourselves for approval, comfort, or gain. In each choice we are asked, will you remain true to yourself, or will you conform to what is easier? Each time we choose authenticity, we strengthen our connection to purpose. Each time we betray it, we weaken that connection, yet even in failure, the inner self continues to call us back. Authenticity is forgiving, always inviting us to return, to realign, to begin again. It is also important to understand that authenticity is not selfish. On the contrary, when we live authentically, we contribute more fully to the world. A person living a borrowed life cannot give their true gifts to others. But a person aligned with their inner truth naturally radiates vitality, creativity, and love. They inspire others not by preaching, but by embodying the courage to be themselves. Authenticity creates a ripple effect, encouraging those around us to do the same. In this way, living in truth is not only a personal act, but also a service to the collective, for it enriches the human community with the diversity of genuine expression. Ultimately, authenticity is the foundation upon which a purposeful life is built. Without it, purpose remains a vague idea, disconnected from reality. With it, purpose becomes lived experience, something we embody day by day in our choices and actions. The outer life and the inner life come together, and we feel the deep satisfaction of knowing that we are truly living our own story. This is the essence of fulfillment, not that life is free from struggle, but that it is real, that it belongs to us, and that it reflects the truth of who we are. Authenticity asks much of us, but it gives far more in return. It gives freedom from the masks that suffocate us. It gives meaning to our struggles and depth to our joys. It gives us a life that is not a copy of another's, but an original creation, uniquely ours. In choosing authenticity, we choose purpose, and in choosing purpose, we choose life in its fullest form.